Hello, welcome. Right. Oh no, not friendly, senior. We want youth league. Okay, right. We're playing 2 more youth league matches. Let's just get on with it. So, we're loosely at the stage where, we just really just winning matches, and there's not a lot to. At this point, like, we could just try some random different formation. We could try doing all sorts of stuff, but part of this is to not do completely random things, to do something that makes sense for, to actually to show you what to do, not to show you what not to do. And obviously, if you're in a position where you can just easily win every single match, then it's worth being aware of, the situations, the criteria where that can happen. So for now, we're just going to keep looking to just win all of our 4 remaining youth league matches here. And then, hopefully the next set of 8 we'll win all of them as well. Obviously, it's possible we won't, but as long as we just keep winning them, we'll just keep looking to keep winning them pretty much. So, keep looking to maintain the idea that we might win all of the remaining ones, sort of thing. Having said that, even if we happen to not win one at some point, it doesn't really fundamentally change anything in nature here. It just probably means that we might have something to learn there. If that does happen, we'll try and learn something. Because it could create an interesting... If that does happen, it could make for some interesting content from the perspective, because we are saying over and over again in these matches, it's kind of risky to change, we should only do it under these very specific circumstances. And then it's well, okay, so arguably if we lose, it is sort of the circumstances where you could argue easily that we should have changed something. So it would be quite easy to, not easy, it would be quite interesting to end up in that, having to construct that argument, if you want to call it that way, or have that conversation, have that debate, have that, I don't know, it's not really an argument or debate or anything, it's just have that discussion. It would just be interesting to... So in many ways, it would kind of actually be interesting to not win one of these matches, so we can sort of analyse that. That was really good, I've got to say. Sometimes players can do pretty frustrating things, and sometimes they can just kind of do pretty awesome things. And that was pretty awesome, really. That was good as well. But yeah, it is kind of just, again, it's just the case where it's what are you supposed to change? You back in the thing, it's changing something is inherently just risky here. Because we're in total cruise control here, so to speak. We're winning, we're dominating. Even if they score here, it's still the case where you're saying, well, okay, they got the ball up the pitch once and happened to score. We've had a whole bunch of shots, kind of thing. I think I've been talking a lot, and maybe you could watch a bit more, but I guess it is a lot of this is changing anything is risky, changing anything is... Yeah, but to some degree that's true, but it is also kind of the case that some changes are way more risky than others, and there are certain things where if it's glaringly obvious that it's a good change that you should just be doing. So an example of this just might be if one of your DCs is constantly getting beaten by, if they're playing 2 strikers up front and they've got a really fast striker, let's say, and one of our DCs is slow, and one of them is fast, and he's constantly running past the slow DC. It could just make sense to swap the DCs or the central defenders around, right? There are certain changes that fall outside the remit of... I'm talking more about changing tempo, changing defensive line, changing things that fundamentally change the nature of how your team plays, as opposed to just some small change like that. Another thing would be... That was quite nice to be honest with you. Another thing might be here, if you... a similar thing could be to swapping anybody, to be honest, but it would in the case of the DCs is an obvious example, but another one could be swapping our strikers around. Could just make sense. Another one could be swapping if we had like both our fullbacks could play both sides. Maybe we want to swap them, sort of thing. So probably a good practical example could be swapping your wingers if both of them could play both sides. If you played AML and AMR, that's a pretty good practical example. Because for example, you could be in a position where that swap results in two improved matchups, not just one. So an example of this could be that they might have a very good tackling fullback that is not very fast or slow, and you might have a lightning fast winger that is good at dribbling and everything, but he's really weak or whatever. So if that's a good matchup, because even though he would typically lose the tackles if he is tackled, so your attacking player will typically, that defender will typically win the tackles against your player. But you're also saying there is a mismatch credit to some point, because if the ball goes over, he will never catch up to attempt the tackle to begin with. And then on the other side, you might just have a slower winger who was constantly getting caught up, who is stronger, and then you could swap him over to the other side where the fullback is really, really fast but not so good at tackling. So then you're saying, well, he will constantly get caught up, but he's like really strong and the other guy can't tackle very well. Or maybe also your guy's got really high flair or something, so you're expecting the tackles to come in, but because of the poor tackling and like your guy's high strength, your guy's high flair sort of thing, like that will result in more positive outcomes. And on the other side, you're saying, your guy will typically lose ball if he is tackled, but he's like way faster than the other guy. So that's an example of where if you flip your wingers, having said that, they both need to play both wings, but if you flip them, it could just create like an improved matchup. Like it's not just one of them that's getting an improved matchup, it's both. It's a type of change that could just massively improve your attacking output, going from a situation where both of your wingers are constantly losing the ball to both of them basically constantly always beating the defenders. It's just the scope for that type of change to improve things is just huge, to the point where if you identify such a situation, you should just act on that, irrespective of anything I'm talking about here. It is a bit interesting. I think this guy being down to 63%, especially when he gets into the 50s, he probably does become worse than our backup at that point. Maybe already now. So we probably just look to sub him off now. I mean, it's safe, yeah, especially now. I mean, the match is just done and dusted, basically, anyway. So, I think one thing that is obviously a bit tricky at the moment is like you can sort of like infer stuff from watching, and you can infer stuff from the stats at the end of the match or whatever. But I think in regards to the diet, like there is a change that let's not talk about. Anyway, this I think I want to talk about specific changes because it's not really the forum for this. But yeah, the ability to be able to do extra sort of more analysis for these to help make these changes in the match is something we're looking to improve over time. So right now it's like there are some tools, but there could be more, and we are looking to add more, basically. So Alright, I'm honestly not sure. Like at this point, it just feels like it's kind of one. We maybe will score another goal. I don't know, but I mean, it feels very possible. Especially their keeper seems to be not particularly good. But we have had we've had loads of shot. I mean, yeah, 8 on target. They've had nothing. I mean, this is just the score could be anything pretty much, and that could easily just. Oof. Yeah, I guess this team is bad, Bad team, bad keeper, bad everything. I mean, having said that, I suppose maybe it ain't that bad because they've had loads of chances and only scored 3 goals, so maybe their keeper is okay. Yeah, kind of weird. It's just like it doesn't. I say obviously. I mean, I guess I'm sure people will have loads of fun just like winning all of their matches super easily if that was the case. But it's like it's kind of a bit. It's kind of not that. It's much more interesting when they're sort of you have to work to get the results. I mean, it's nice to have a team set up well and just win without you doing anything much, but. Personally, I find this the whole match side of things just way more interesting when you got to actually, as a manager, actually work for the results, so to speak. You actually got to watch properly. You've actually got to make changes to change how it is flowing. When you make these changes and you basically make there is a match that you would lose, let's say, and then you convert it into or draw or whatever, and then you convert that into a victory. Kind of, that's. One of the I personally find that super satisfying, much more than just these matches where it's just like whatever, we win. I mean, it's still it's still alright. It's a different type. Yeah, I don't know. Just don't. I'm not saying like it's not okay to just win like this at all. I'm just saying personally, from a satisfaction perspective, I'd much rather just have a match, on the back foot, losing. Not looking good, and you make some changes and you turn the whole thing around and you end up winning it. They're the best ones in my opinion. Alright, so I feel like we got another change. It could just be the keeper again. That's probably what it is. We were saying we do want to get him some points, so this is another good chance. And if we do it later, we may not get to do it. And kind of funny if we can see a goal. Oh, we nearly did. I think that was their first shot the whole game, was it? Yeah. Oh man, 29% territory, 71. Oh, they're going to get that stat up massively in these last couple of minutes. Oh man, look at their territory flying up to 31% after that from 29. Oh, back to 30. Oh, that's going to sit in play. That's going to get us. Yeah. Oh, what a shame there. Okay, sorry. Yeah, look at that territory difference, and then the possession is the same, right? It's just huge, like 50-50 possession and 19 shots to 1. Yeah, possession is such a... it's not just in this game, in real life, it's such a pointless stat. It's like so easy to have such a high number and not basically do anything with all of it. On the flip side, you can have a very limited amount. I mean, but yeah, it's quite interesting if you read, what is it called? Right, let's start another match. There's a book. It's called something like why? What is it called? It's something like why everything you thought you knew about football is wrong. Something like that. So I'm just checking it on my phone. Let's see what it's called. What was it called? Okay, so it's called The Numbers Game. It's by Chris Anderson and David Sally. So it's like the book is called... So Chris Anderson, David Sally. The book is called The Numbers Game. And the sort of subtitle of the book is Why Everything You Know About Football Is Wrong. Very interesting read. And one of the things that they discuss in that is the concept of possession, and effectively like how it's measured in football as a statistic. It just doesn't make any sense, or at least it makes sense, so to speak, but it doesn't make any sense through the lens of trying to measure something that means something in regards to impacting the outcomes of matches, or the score, basically. And they have this very interesting conversation about also just that possession is measured wrong, effectively. Like, to put another way, like for now, for example, they would be measured as having possession. They have possession. It's still their possession. It's still their possession. It's still their possession. Now it's my possession. And clearly they weren't in possession. So basically, whilst the ball is kind of travelling between players, it still counts as being in the team's possession, where clearly they don't actually have possession of the ball, right? They're not holding the ball. They don't have the ball. They're not in possession of it, and yet it's measured as them having possession. And even the same thing can be applied when they're dribbling the ball, because they don't have the ball, right? It's like it's on the ground in front of them. They're dribbling it, and obviously we sort of think that the guy has the ball, but he kind of doesn't. Like, any player can just walk up and like kick it off of him, sort of thing. So he doesn't have possession, not in the same way of, like, for example, right now the keeper has possession. Like, nobody can take the ball. Like, when it's in his hands and he grabs it, the keeper has true possession. Like, if you have a throw-in and you're going to throw it in, your team has possession. The other team cannot take it. So there's like this different measure of possession, which is like true actual possession when you have throw-ins. Basically set pieces, right? Like, when the players stop, the other team cannot take it off you and you have the ball. That's like true actual possession. And there's a very interesting thing about, like, for example, like there was a whole period in the the late 90s, maybe early 2000s, where like Stoke were like the Rory Delap era, basically, and they had Peter Crouch at the end of it. Before that, they had other ones. They had a lot of players that like played into that, but at its core, it was like Rory Delap taking the throw-ins, and there was a lot of, like, if you look, they were like right at the bottom of the league in possession. But if you look at this sort of true possession stat, like your team actually has it in possession, the other team cannot take it, and it's a set piece. If you measured that, they like led the league in possession, like 8 seasons. I can't remember. Led the league right up the high or whatever. But it was like, the interesting part is like this true possession stat. They were like top, basically. And then in regards to like how possession is measured in whatever this arbitrary way is, it doesn't kind of actually make any sense. They were like at the bottom, and everybody focuses on, this sort of possession, like it's drifting between players, but a team has possession, and there's like no. It's like, the average football fan basically has zero consideration that a team right now has possession of, like, this is important, this is something that matters, basically. Having all these throw-ins and free kicks and whatever, like having the ball all the time, like, it matters from the context of counting fouls or something, like some kind of stat or whatever, and it matters from the perspective if they happen to have a shot off of it, but that's just because they're counting those other stats to some degree. So it's very interesting conceptually, because the thing in particular with Stoke, when they had all of this time and all this possession with all of these set pieces, like it really held the game up a lot. That's the thing as well, like all of that time that they had it, the other team didn't. And on top of that, like when it's gone out and they're about to have a throw in and Rory Delap's got the ball or whatever, whilst that whole process is happening, they aren't conceding a goal, basically, right? And then it's quite interesting, because they just it allowed their team to rest a lot. It allowed there's a lot of things tactically that happened off the back of all of those set pieces, beyond the fact that he could take long throw-ins, basically. And then, not to mention that he obviously could take long throw-ins, which was just such a huge deal that they were incredibly dangerous, these throw-ins in and of themselves. So yeah, anyway, it was just quite interesting. There's a lot of interesting concepts in that book, to be honest. There was like a concept of like, there's loads, to be honest. There was another quite interesting one about like not all goals are equal, basically. Like it kind of sounds obvious when you explain it, but it's just not something that's really tracked or measured or anybody cares about, really, as a thing. But there definitely is a concept that, like, you could have a striker lead the league in goals, sort of thing, and yet very few of those goals really mattered. Like, they're just scoring goals when they score a hat-trick when your team wins 6-0 type of thing. Like, he could have not scored any of the hat-trick and you still would have won anyway type of thing. Versus another player who, they scored like maybe 6 goals over the season, but every single one of them was like in a really, every single one of them was a match that you won by 1 goal, let's say. So all of those goals like mattered hugely. And so there's this very interesting idea that that there are certain archetypes or players or certain players that basically seem to score a lot of goals, but they only basically score goals when they don't matter. And conversely, which is quite interesting. I think there was a thing in particular. It was I think it was the season that maybe Berbatov was the leading, when he was at Man United, and leading scorer in the Premier League. I think it might be that, or right up there. I don't know if he won, I can't remember. I think that was a sort of interesting example that I think hardly any of his goals, at the end of the day, kind of even mattered. Like, he could have not scored any of them and it wouldn't have impacted any results. It's quite interesting. I think that's... Yeah. Might got the example wrong there, but the concept, they had a lot of examples in there, illustrating this, effectively like focusing on strikers who didn't sort of just get big, get like loads of goals in matches that the team would have easily won anyway. I mean, obviously it's a bit more complicated than that, but the concept, I think, the core of the concept is very interesting. And I think it can a little bit apply maybe to 90 Minute Fever as well. That conceptually, like, there certainly are like strikers that can score loads of goals and easily get goals against certain types of teams or certain defenses or whatever, and they just struggle against better teams, sort of thing. So I think particularly if you're relying on speed for a lot of your goals and you've got a very fast whole forward line, it kind of is a bit like that. Like, you will easily win whenever the opposition defense is slow, typically. If all of your attackers are really fast and all of the defenders are slow. But the problem then becomes, if all of their defenders are fast, what you really need is a player who's capable of scoring goals in that situation. And that player... he's probably not scoring loads of goals in the other situation, because it probably just is all of your other players that have typically got the ball then, if that makes sense. So I haven't read that book for a long time, sorry. I read it a long time ago. I feel like I read it when it first came out, actually, so let's have a look when it came out. 2014, so I read it around there, so that was quite a ways now. 8 years ago. Maybe I'll read it again. Super interesting. And 8 years is a long enough that like your general knowledge level and ideas and experiences and whatever, like 8 years is quite a long time to sort of evolve your views on something. I think 8 years ago, I did read a lot of books around then, so it was one of them about football. Like, I went through a big phase or whatever, but I did. I knew, for example, that I would be heavily involved in needing to work out logically how all of this sort of match side of things needs to happen for this game. I know that so I did, study a lot just to try to understand football tactics and stuff a lot better. So yes, that was an interesting book for that. Right, just making some standard subs just to, I don't know. Actually, yeah, let's not do that because this match isn't officially just over yet. Let's not just do it. Let's not. Maybe we should have done a sub there to bring on a player that could have defended that set piece better, actually. because we could. There's one sub we can make that we know about off the top of my head. It's a sub 1 MC for another to help with the set pieces a bit. Right, this guy in, and apologies if the examples I was citing in the actual examples were wrong, but the concepts and maybe maybe some of the details were not remembered correctly because it was a long time ago. But I'm quite convinced I didn't make up the content of this book. I'm pretty sure that conceptually the concepts existed in these books, and they were very interesting to read. And I think there was a lot of stuff. It was like a proper full. There was loads of different. This is just one sort of topic that was sort of covered, and there's probably at least 20 other sort of things at least covered in this book about they have this whole thing about possession in there, and there was so many other concepts in there. This thing about the sort of the value of goals being different was another thing. There was maybe 20, 30, 40 even different sort of whole entire things conceptually like that were very interesting. Missed. No, we're not going to get ourselves in. I think it's too late. That pause click, is it? Yeah, just for us. If you're in Europe, that would be fine. You would make it, but I'm not at the moment. So yeah, that's a shame. I just missed out on some free points basically for those players. So alright, well, it was kind of another cruise to victory. So yeah, right, we didn't get what we were hoping for. We were hoping for a close match. We didn't get it. So one that maybe there's 2 left. So let's see. Alright, cheers. Thanks for watching. Catch you for the next one.